ultimately, while in many ways Viktor Orban has got what he wants, which is this deal, this compromise, along with, must be said, other EU leaders who will be working towards it. Clearly, this is going to be quite a drawn-out process. It does follow weeks and weeks of talks that led to what essentially the budget and that coronavirus recovery fund being stalled. But this breakthrough tonight, it does mean in part that the mechanism, that rule of law mechanism that the Poles and the Hungarians wanted to get rid of, is still there, but it cannot be used retrospectively. It will only apply to the budget going forwards from next year, so not to the coronavirus recovery fund. And also, it will have to be tested in front of the European Court of Justice even before it is possibly used. And if it is used or attempted to be used, the member state involved could also challenge it through the court. So lots of hoops to go through. Clearly, it would be a long, drawn-out process if it was to be used. And so, like everything in life, it's a bit of a compromise. Speaking to MEPs tonight, most of them seem pretty happy because, as I say, the mechanism is there, though they recognise that this is essentially just the start, Oliver. This is only the first step in trying to tackle this issue of the rule of law when it comes to particularly Poland and Hungary, because ultimately it is quite a narrow mechanism that just simply focuses on how money is spent, whether it's spent fraudulently or not. Whereas for the Hungarians, they're pretty pleased. Viktor Orban tonight writing on Facebook that this was a common sense proposal, that there was no time for ideological battles, that he protected the money for the Hungarians, and it was now time to put champagne on ice.
Darren, a lot of the times at these EU councils, we see progress, a big announcement on one big issue, but then the other things that have been debated end up being kicked down the road. Is that something that we've seen on Thursday?
Yeah, I think it is. As always with EU summits, there's an awful lot of talking. Sometimes there's very rarely anything substantive. So aside from the budget, EU leaders on Thursday have been talking about things like the environment, trying to get to that target of 55% in terms of carbon emission reductions. That means an awful lot of money and indeed policy changes. There's been a focus on that, but nothing really substantive. Also, when it comes to much talked about sanctions with Turkey, given the tensions in the Eastern Mediterranean, unsurprisingly being pushed by Cyprus and Greece. Again, lots of talks, but very little detail about whether those sanctions will come or not, though they did roll over the sanctions when it comes to Russia. And also, clearly, the coronavirus pandemic